I'm Sadie Thompson, 59 years old, and I never thought my only daughter would turn against me. After decades of love and sacrifice, Jennifer looked me in the eyes during our family lunch and said words that shattered my heart into a million pieces. The restaurant fell silent as her voice carried those cruel words, "You've always been a burden. Get out of our lives." Before I share how this painful moment unfolded and changed everything, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. If you've ever felt the sting of family rejection when you least expected it. Growing up in a small town outside of Portland, I always dreamed of having a beautiful family. My husband Tom and I were high school sweethearts who married right after college. We were young in love and ready to build our lives together. Tom worked as an accountant while I taught elementary school, saving every penny for our future home and family. After 3 years of marriage, we welcomed our daughter Jennifer into the world. I still remember holding her tiny body against my chest, promising to love and protect her forever. Tom and I were overjoyed, taking endless photos and spending hours just watching her sleep. She had my blue eyes and Tom's dimpled smile, the perfect combination of both of us. Jennifer was our miracle baby. After being told I might never conceive due to complications from an earlier surgery, her arrival felt like the universe had blessed us beyond measure. Those early years were filled with first steps, first words, and the pure joy of watching our daughter discover the world around her. Our little family was complete and happy until tragedy struck when Jennifer was just 7 years old. Tom was driving home from work during a heavy rainstorm when his car hydroplaned on the highway. The doctors said he died instantly in the crash. I became a widow and single mother overnight, my entire world crashing down around me. The grief was overwhelming, but I had to stay strong for Jennifer. Some mornings I could barely get out of bed, but the sound of my daughter calling for breakfast would pull me from the depths of despair. She needed me, and that responsibility became my anchor during those dark days. Financial struggles followed immediately after Tom's death. His life insurance helped initially, but as a single-income household, I had to make difficult decisions. I picked up extra tutoring jobs after school hours and during summers. Sometimes I worked at the local bookstore on weekends, while Jennifer stayed with my mother. Despite the challenges, Jennifer and I forged a special bond through our shared grief. We established new traditions like Sunday pancake breakfasts and movie nights every Friday. I never missed a school event or dance recital, often rushing from work, still in my teaching clothes, just to see her perform. Jennifer was a bright, creative child who excelled at school. Her teachers praised her artistic abilities and writing skills. I kept every drawing, poem, and report card in special memory boxes, treasuring each accomplishment. By middle school, she was winning writing competitions and had her artwork displayed in local exhibitions. As Jennifer entered her teenage years, things began to change. The sweet, affectionate girl started pulling away, which I understood as a normal part of adolescence. There were arguments about curfews, friends I wasn't comfortable with, and her increasingly demanding attitude about brand-name clothes we couldn't afford. Still, we managed to work through these challenges. I tried to be understanding while maintaining necessary boundaries. When she was accepted to UCLA with a partial scholarship for creative writing, I was bursting with pride. Though sending her across the country was difficult, I wanted her to follow her dreams, even if it meant more financial strain on me. I took out a second mortgage on our modest home to help cover Jennifer's college expenses. The scholarship wasn't enough, and I refused to let my daughter graduate with crushing student loan debt if I could help it. This decision would have significant consequences for my financial future, but at the time, all I could think about was giving Jennifer every advantage possible. During her college years, Jennifer began to change more dramatically. Her calls became less frequent, and when we did talk, she would mention new friends from wealthy backgrounds. She seemed embarrassed about her upbringing, and would dodge questions about bringing these friends home during breaks. Our modest house and lifestyle suddenly seemed to be sources of shame for her. Looking back, I realized this was when the first real distance developed between us. But I dismissed my concerns, telling myself this was just part of her growing up and finding her place in the world. I never imagined those small fractures would eventually shatter our relationship completely. Jennifer met Maxwell during her junior year at UCLA. He was a business major from a prominent banking family in California, with connections throughout the entertainment industry. From the first time she mentioned him, I could hear the change in her voice, a mixture of infatuation and awe that concerned me slightly. When Jennifer brought Maxwell home for Thanksgiving during her senior year, the differences between our worlds became glaringly obvious. He arrived wearing designer clothes and checking his expensive watch, repeatedly seeming uncomfortable in our modest three-bedroom home. During dinner, he spoke mostly about his family's vacation properties and the networking events his father had arranged for him after graduation. Maxwell's family knows everyone who matters in Los Angeles, Jennifer announced proudly as she served the pumpkin pie I had baked from my mother's recipe. His father is already lining up interviews for both of us at top firms. I noticed how Jennifer carefully monitored everything I said during that visit, sometimes wincing when I used expressions from our hometown or shared stories from her childhood. She had adopted a slight accent that sounded nothing like how she was raised and used phrases I had never heard from her before. Despite my reservations, I tried to welcome Maxwell and show genuine interest in his life and plans. Yet every attempt at connection was met with polite but distant responses. When I asked about his family, his answers were vague, but designed to emphasize their status and wealth. My parents were just in Europe, meeting with some business associates. They typically spend winters at our Aspen property and summers in the Hamptons, he explained, while barely looking up from his phone. After graduation, Jennifer moved to Los Angeles with Maxwell. They rented an expensive apartment in a trendy neighborhood that cost more per month than my mortgage payment. Jennifer secured a position at a publishing house, though she later admitted the job came through Maxwell's family connections rather than on her own merit. During this period, our communication dwindled further. My calls often went to voicemail, and my texts received brief, delayed responses. When I suggested visiting, there was always some reason why the timing wasn't right. They were too busy. The apartment was being renovated, or they had plans to be out of town. The real breakthrough in understanding the changes in my daughter came when Maxwell proposed after 2 years of dating. Jennifer called me excitement bubbling through her voice for the first time in months. The ring she described in detail was a family heirloom with a diamond so large she was almost embarrassed to wear it in public. I was invited to a lavish engagement party at Maxwell's parents' estate in Beverly Hills. Walking into their mansion felt like entering another world. Staff in uniform served champagne on silver trays. Floral arrangements taller than me adorned every corner, and guests arrived in luxury vehicles with drivers waiting outside. Maxwell's mother, Caroline, was a slim, elegantly dressed woman with perfectly styled silver hair and an expression that seemed permanently frozen in mild disapproval. His father, Richard, was a loud, commanding presence who spoke about money and influence as casually as others might discuss the weather. Jennifer has really blossomed since meeting Maxwell, Caroline told me during a brief conversation examining me through narrowed eyes. We hardly recognized the girl who first came to dinner at our home. She's become quite polished. The comment stung, but not as much as seeing how differently Jennifer behaved around Maxwell's family and friends. She laughed at jokes that weren't funny, agreed with political opinions I knew she didn't share, and repeatedly referenced connections and places that had never been part of our life together. That evening, I overheard a conversation between Jennifer and one of Maxwell's cousins that truly opened my eyes. "So that's your mum?" the young woman asked, glancing in my direction. "She's so ordinary." I thought she'd be more like you. Jennifer's response cut through me like a knife. We're nothing alike, actually. I've had to work very hard to get where I am now. Some people just don't have ambition to move beyond their circumstances. Later that night in my hotel room, I cried for hours, mourning the daughter I had raised and wondering how she had transformed into someone who could speak about me with such dismissive disdain. Still, I told myself that perhaps this was just a phase, that the pressure of fitting into Maxwell's world was temporarily changing her, and that underneath it all, my loving daughter remained. I couldn't have been more wrong. The wedding planning process became an exercise in humiliation. Despite offering to help multiple times, I was systematically excluded from every decision. Jennifer and Caroline met with exclusive vendors and visited high-end venues without even informing me until after deposits were paid. Mum, we've already chosen the flowers. Caroline has a specific vision and she's friends with the top florist in Los Angeles, Jennifer explained when I asked if I could join them for vendor meetings. Besides, you wouldn't be comfortable with the budget we're working with. When I offered to contribute financially from my modest savings, Jennifer seemed embarrassed. That's not necessary. Maxwell's parents are handling everything. They want to give us the wedding of our dreams. The implication was clear. My dreams for my daughter's wedding weren't grand enough, and my financial contribution would be insignificant compared to what the Andersons could provide. Still, I persisted in trying to maintain some traditional mother-of-the-bride role. I'd love to help address invitations or assist with the seating arrangements, I suggested during one of our increasingly rare phone conversations. We've hired professionals for that, Jennifer replied curtly. Actually, I've been meaning to ask. Could you send me the addresses of anyone from our side who should be invited? Keep the list reasonable, though, as the venue has capacity limitations. I later discovered that capacity limitations didn't apply to Maxwell's side, which included over 200 guests, many of whom Jennifer had never met. Meanwhile, my list of 30 close family friends and relatives was cut down to 15, with several lifelong friends who had watched Jennifer grow up being excluded. The dress shopping experience proved equally painful. I flew to Los Angeles specifically for what I thought would be a special mother-daughter moment, only to discover that Jennifer had already selected her gown during a private appointment with Caroline and her bridesmaids. I didn't want to waste your time, Mum, Jennifer explained as she showed me photos of the designer dress that cost more than a year of my mortgage payments. And Caroline knows all the best bridal boutiques. For my own attire, I was given strict parameters. The mothers are wearing pastels, Jennifer informed me. Caroline will be in pale blue, so you should choose something in lavender or mint. Nothing too bright or attention-grabbing. When I purchased a modest lavender dress from a department store, Jennifer insisted on seeing photos before approving it. Her response was less than enthusiastic. I guess it will do. At least it's the right color. As the wedding date approached, I received an email from the wedding planner detailing the schedule for the weekend. I was shocked to discover I wasn't included in the rehearsal dinner speech lineup, despite the traditional role of the mother of the bride. When I called Jennifer to ask about this, her answer revealed how far she had drifted. Caroline thought it would be best to limit the speeches to immediate family, she said, without a trace of irony. Jennifer, I am your immediate family. I'm your mother, I reminded her, my voice catching. You know what I mean, Mum. The Andersons have several important guests attending who are on tight schedules. We need to keep things moving efficiently. Each conversation like this chipped away at my heart, but I remained determined to support my daughter on her wedding day. I repeatedly told myself that the wedding was just one day, and that our relationship would normalize after the stress of planning was behind us. Then came the bridal shower, hosted at Caroline's Country Club, with a garden party theme that included ice sculptures and a string quartet. I arrived early to see if I could help with anything, only to be directed to sit with distant relatives of Maxwell, while Jennifer was surrounded by her new friends and Caroline's social circle. During the gift opening, I watched anxiously as Jennifer unwrapped the hand-knitted blanket I had spent months making, incorporating yarn colors that matched her new home decor. Among the expensive crystal and designer items, my gift seemed out of place, and Jennifer's quick "thank you" before moving to the next package confirmed my fears. Later, I overheard one of Caroline's friends asking about me. "Which one is Jennifer's mother again? I haven't seen her all afternoon." Caroline's response was telling. "She's over there, the one in the lavender dress from Macy's. They're not particularly close. Jennifer has really become part of our family instead." These accumulating slights and dismissals were painful, but I continued making excuses for Jennifer's behavior. She was stressed, trying to impress her new family caught up in wedding details. Anything to avoid confronting the growing reality that my daughter was deliberately distancing herself from me and our shared past. 2 weeks before the wedding, Jennifer invited me to Los Angeles for a final dress fitting, and what she described as quality time before the big day. Hopeful that this might signal a return to our former closeness, I eagerly arranged time off from work and booked my flight. Upon arrival, I discovered that the quality time consisted of running last-minute errands for the wedding and attending a luncheon with Maxwell's extended family. Jennifer was constantly on her phone coordinating with the wedding planner or texting with Caroline about final details. "Jennifer, could we maybe have dinner, just the two of us, one night?" I asked as we drove between appointments. "I've barely had a chance to talk with you alone." She glanced at me, seeming annoyed by the request. "I don't think there's time, Mum. There's the rehearsal dinner tomorrow, then the welcome party for out-of-town guests, and I still have about 100 things on my to-do list." The following day, Jennifer suggested we meet for lunch at an upscale restaurant near her apartment. I arrived early, heart full of hope that this might be the opportunity to reconnect. Jennifer arrived 20 minutes late, immediately ordering a martini, despite it being barely noon. "Sorry I'm late," she said, not sounding particularly apologetic. Caroline needed my opinion on the final centerpiece arrangements. The conversation was strained at first, with Jennifer checking her phone repeatedly between brief comments about the weather and wedding logistics. I tried steering the discussion toward memories of her childhood, hoping to remind her of our bond. "Remember those summer trips to the lake house your grandparents owned? You used to love roasting marshmallows and telling ghost stories around the campfire," I said, smiling at the cherished memory. Jennifer barely looked up from her phone. Oh yeah, that was a long time ago." After her second martini, Jennifer's demeanor changed subtly. There was an edge to her voice I hadn't heard before, a coldness in her eyes when she finally put down her phone and looked directly at me. "Mum, there's something we need to discuss before the wedding." She began straightening the expensive silverware on the table. "Maxwell and I have been talking, and we feel it would be best if you had a less prominent role in the ceremony." "What do you mean?" I asked, my stomach tightening. "Well, instead of walking down the aisle before me as planned, we'd like you to simply be seated with the other guests when the ceremony begins. Caroline's brother will be escorting me." The request was so unexpected that for a moment I couldn't respond. Jennifer had already taken away my speech at the rehearsal dinner and excluded me from most planning activities, and now she wanted to remove one of the last meaningful roles I had in her wedding. But Jennifer, traditionally the mother of the bride, is escorted down the aisle. "It's an important moment for us both," I finally managed to say, trying to keep my voice steady. Jennifer's face hardened. "This isn't about tradition, Mom. It's about what Maxwell and I want for our wedding. And frankly, Caroline thinks it would look more balanced if you were seated already, since you're, you know, just one parent." "Just one parent," I repeated, unable to believe what I was hearing. "Jennifer, I've been both mother and father to you since your dad died. How can you say I'm just one parent?" Her eyes narrowed as she took another sip of her martini. That's exactly the kind of guilt trip I was expecting. This is why Maxwell thinks you're difficult. Maxwell thinks I'm difficult. We've barely had any conversations beyond small talk, I said, genuinely confused. He sees how you try to cling to me, how you're always bringing up the past and trying to make me feel guilty for building my own life. Jennifer replied, her voice rising slightly. And he's right. You've always made everything about your sacrifices, your struggles as a single mother. Did you ever stop to think how that affected me? The restaurant around us seemed to fade away as Jennifer's words struck like physical blows. Other diners were beginning to glance in our direction, but Jennifer didn't seem to notice or care. I never wanted to be the sad girl with the dead father and the struggling mother, she continued, leaning across the table. Do you have any idea what it was like growing up with second-hand clothes while my friends had everything they wanted? How embarrassing it was when you showed up to school events in your worn-out teacher clothes while other mothers looked elegant and put together. Each accusation felt like a knife twisting in my heart. I had worked multiple jobs to provide for Jennifer, spent countless nights and worrying about bills while she slept peacefully, sacrificed my own dreams so she could pursue hers. And now she was throwing it all back in my face, as if my efforts had been selfish acts designed to embarrass her. Jennifer, I did the best I could with what we had, I said quietly, fighting back tears. Everything I did was for you to give you opportunities, and now I'm supposed to be forever grateful, right? She interrupted sharply. Forever indebted to Saint Sadie for her noble sacrifices. Well, I'm tired of carrying that burden. I'm starting a new life with Maxwell, joining a family that doesn't wallow in hardship and struggle. The word burden echoed in my mind. Had my daughter always seen me this way? Had all my love and sacrifice meant nothing? You've always been a burden, Jennifer suddenly shouted, standing up so abruptly that her chair scraped loudly against the floor. With your neediness, your constant reminiscing about the good old days that weren't actually good at all, I'm done pretending. I want you to get out of our lives. The restaurant fell completely silent. Dozens of well-dressed patrons stared at our table as I sat there paralyzed by shock and heartbreak. A waiter hovered uncertainly nearby, clearly unsure whether to intervene. Jennifer seemed momentarily startled by her own outburst, then grabbed her designer purse from the chair beside her. I think it would be best if you didn't come to the wedding at all, she said, her voice now coldly controlled. It would be less awkward for everyone. Before I could respond, she threw some cash on the table and walked out, leaving me alone in a restaurant full of strangers who had just witnessed my daughter publicly disown me. I returned to my hotel room in a daze, barely aware of how I got there. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I stared at the wall for hours. Jennifer's words playing on repeat in my mind. You've always been a burden. Get out of our lives. How had we reached this point? Where was the little girl who once made me Mother's Day cards, proclaiming me the best mom in the universe? The teenager who, despite our arguments, would crawl into my bed during thunderstorms because they still frightened her. The college student who called me in tears after her first heartbreak, saying, I just need my mum right now. That evening, my phone lit up with a text from Jennifer. I'm sorry about the scene at lunch. I shouldn't have lost my temper in public, but I still think it's best if you don't attend the wedding. Maxwell and his family agree. No apology for the cruel words, no recognition of the pain she had caused. Just regret for the public nature of her outburst and confirmation that she truly didn't want me at her wedding. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I called my oldest friend Diana, who had known Jennifer since birth. Her shock matched my own. Sadie. This doesn't sound like the Jennifer I've known all her life, Diana said after I recounted the lunch disaster. It's like she's been brainwashed by Maxwell and his family. Or maybe this is who she's always wanted to be, I replied softly. Maybe I just never saw it. That night I barely slept, wrestling with what to do. Should I ignore Jennifer's wishes and attend the wedding anyway? Should I try once more to reach her to rebuild the bridge that seemed completely burned? Or should I accept that my daughter had chosen a different path, one that didn't include me? By morning, I had made my decision. I would not attend a wedding where I was clearly unwanted. Despite everything, I loved Jennifer too much to turn her special day into a battlefield. And perhaps my absence would give her what she seemed to want most: freedom from the burden she believed me to be. I checked out of the hotel 3 days earlier than planned and booked a flight home. Before leaving, I wrote Jennifer a letter, pouring my heart onto the pages in a way I hadn't been allowed to do in person. "My dearest Jennifer," I began, "I will respect your wish and not attend your wedding. This decision breaks my heart, but I love you too much to cause you pain on what should be a joyful day. I want you to know that despite everything, my love for you is unchanged and unconditional. You were never a burden to me. You were my greatest gift, my reason for persevering through the hardest times. I'm leaving you the pearl necklace that was your grandmother's. She wore it on her wedding day, as did I. I had hoped to see you wear it too, but I understand if you choose not to. It will always be yours regardless. I wish you and Maxwell a lifetime of happiness. My door and heart will always be open to you if and when you ever want to walk through them again. All my love, Mum." I arranged for the letter and the pearl necklace to be delivered to Jennifer's apartment the following day, then boarded a plane home with an emptiness in my chest where my heart should be. The wedding day came and went. Through mutual friends, I learned that everything went perfectly according to plan. The ceremony was featured in a regional luxury magazine, with Caroline extensively quoted about the exquisite details and family traditions incorporated into the event. There was no mention of the bride's mother anywhere in the article. The months following Jennifer's wedding were the darkest of my life, even darker than the period after Tom's death. Back then, I had Jennifer to focus on, a reason to get out of bed each morning. Now I felt utterly alone, rejected by the person I loved most in the world. I returned to teaching, going through the motions with my fourth-grade students while feeling hollow inside. Nights and weekends stretched endlessly before me. Friends invited me to dinners and events, but I declined most offers, preferring to sit alone in my quiet house, surrounded by photos and memories of a daughter who wanted nothing to do with me. Eventually, Diana staged an intervention of sorts, showing up at my door one Saturday morning with coffee and a determined expression. "Enough, Sadie," she said, pushing past me into the house. "You can't keep living like this. Jennifer made her choice, and it was a terrible one, but you still have a life to live." Diana's tough love approach was exactly what I needed. That day, she helped me clean the house, which I had been neglecting. She opened windows to let fresh air in, made me shower and change into real clothes instead of pajamas, and then took me to lunch at our favorite local cafe. "You need to find yourself again," Diana told me over sandwiches. "The Sadie who exists outside of being Jennifer's mother." Her words struck a chord. For so long, my identity had been wrapped up in motherhood. Without that role, who was I? What did I want from the remaining chapters of my life? The following week, I joined a support group for parents estranged from their adult children. Sitting in a circle with others who understood my specific pain was tremendously healing. There were tears, yes, but also moments of laughter and practical advice for moving forward. "The hardest lesson," said Grace, a woman in her 70s, who hadn't spoken to her son in 15 years, "is accepting that we can't control our children's choices. We can only control how we respond to them." Taking this wisdom to heart, I began rebuilding my life piece by piece. I signed up for an evening art class I'd always been interested in, but never had time for while raising Jennifer. I volunteered at a local literacy program, helping adults learn to read. I even started dating again, meeting a kind widower named Paul through a community theatre group. 6 months after the wedding, I received my first communication from Jennifer, a brief text saying she and Maxwell had returned from their extended honeymoon in Europe and Asia. No questions about how I was doing, no acknowledgement of our estrangement, just a factual update as if nothing had happened. I responded simply, "Thank you for letting me know. I hope you both had a wonderful trip. I'm here whenever you're ready to talk." Weeks passed with no further contact. Through mutual connections, I learned that Jennifer and Maxwell had purchased a luxury condominium in downtown Los Angeles, and that she had left her publishing job to focus on charity work with Caroline's social circle. These snippets of information were both comforting and painful. At least I knew she was safe and apparently thriving, even if she wanted nothing to do with me. Then, nearly a year after her wedding, something unexpected happened. I received a call from an unknown Los Angeles number while teaching my class. When I checked my voicemail during lunch break, I was shocked to hear Jennifer's voice. "Mum, it's me. I need to talk to you. Can you call me back at this number? Please don't call my regular phone." The message was cryptic and concerning. I called back immediately, but the call went to voicemail. I left a message assuring Jennifer I was available anytime she needed me, then spent the rest of the school day distracted with worry and hope. Jennifer called again that evening, and this time I was able to answer. Her voice sounded different, subdued, almost frightened. "Mum, I don't know where to start," she said after an awkward greeting. "Wherever you need to, sweetie," I replied, using the endearment naturally despite everything that had happened between us. There was a long pause before Jennifer spoke again. "Things aren't good with Maxwell. Actually, they're really bad. I made a huge mistake, Mum. Everything is falling apart." Over the next hour, Jennifer revealed the truth about her marriage. The controlling behavior that had been present during dating had escalated dramatically after the wedding. Maxwell monitored her spending, her friendships, even her clothing choices. When she had attempted to return to work, he and Caroline had intervened, insisting that a wife in their family didn't need a career. "He has these rage episodes," Jennifer explained, her voice dropping to a whisper. "He's never hit me, but sometimes I think he might. And his parents enable everything. Caroline tells me I just need to be more accommodating, that Maxwell is under stress at work." My heart ached for my daughter, even as a small wounded part of me thought, "You chose this over me." I immediately pushed that thought away, focusing instead on how to help her. "Jennifer, where are you right now? Are you safe?" I asked, already mentally calculating how quickly I could get to Los Angeles. "I'm at a hotel. Maxwell doesn't know where I am. I just needed space to think," she replied. "Mum, I don't know what to do. I feel so trapped. We signed a prenup that's completely in his favor. If I leave, I'll have nothing." "You'll have me," I said firmly. "You'll always have me." There was a sound like a stifled sob on the other end of the line. "After everything I said to you, after how I treated you, how can you still be there for me?" "Because I'm your mother," I answered simply. "That doesn't change no matter what." 2 days later, I flew to Los Angeles and met Jennifer at her hotel. The confident, polished woman who had dismissed me at lunch a year ago was gone. In her place was someone who looked exhausted and frightened, with dark circles under her eyes and a jumpiness that broke my heart. We talked for hours. Jennifer apologized repeatedly for her behavior, explaining that Maxwell and his family had gradually isolated her from everyone who didn't fit into their world. They had subtly but persistently criticized me, implying that my modest background and single-parent status were embarrassing liabilities rather than evidence of resilience and love. They made me feel like I had to choose, Jennifer explained tearfully, like I couldn't be part of their world if I stayed connected to my past. And I was so desperate to belong to have the security and status they offered that I convinced myself they were right. Seeing my daughter's pain, I found that my own hurt began to heal. The Jennifer who had cruelly rejected me wasn't the real Jennifer at all, but a version of her warped by manipulation and false values. "What do you want to do now?" I asked gently. Jennifer looked down at her hands, where her massive diamond engagement ring still sparkled. "I want out," she said quietly but firmly. "I don't want to live this life anymore. It's all surface and no substance. Nobody is real. Nobody cares about anything that matters. I miss who I used to be." Over the next several weeks, I helped Jennifer navigate her exit from the marriage. It wasn't easy. Maxwell alternated between tearful promises to change and chilling threats about what would happen if she left. His parents leveraged their social connections to ensure Jennifer would struggle professionally in Los Angeles if she went through with the divorce. I took a leave of absence from teaching and rented a small apartment in Los Angeles to support Jennifer through this difficult time. We consulted with divorce attorneys, domestic violence counselors, and financial advisors. The prenuptial agreement was indeed restrictive, but not insurmountable with the right legal help. Throughout this process, Jennifer and I rebuilt our relationship. There were difficult conversations about the hurtful things she had said, the wedding I had missed, and the year of estrangement. We both shed many tears, but each honest discussion brought us closer to healing. "I don't know if I can ever make up for what I did," Jennifer said one evening as we shared takeout in my temporary apartment. "Calling you a burden when you were anything but that. You were always my foundation, my safety net, and I threw it all away for people who saw me as an accessory, not a person." "We both get a fresh start," I assured her. "That's the beautiful thing about love. It can always begin again." 6 months later, Jennifer's divorce was finalized. She moved back to Portland, initially staying with me before finding her own apartment nearby. She returned to publishing, securing a position with a small but respected literary press, where her creativity was valued more than her connections. The journey of healing continued for both of us. Jennifer sought therapy to process her experiences in the toxic marriage and to understand how she had been vulnerable to such manipulation. I worked on establishing healthy boundaries, learning to be supportive without being self-sacrificing. 2 years after our reconciliation, Jennifer invited me to lunch at the same cafe where we'd first reconnected after her divorce. She seemed nervous, fidgeting with her napkin as we ordered. "Mum, I've been thinking a lot about something you said when you were helping me through the divorce," she began after our food arrived. "About love being able to begin again. I want you to know that I'll never again take your love for granted or mistake your sacrifices for burdens." She reached into her purse and pulled out a small box, sliding it across the table to me. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with 2 intertwined hearts. "One heart for each of us," Jennifer explained. "Connected but individual. I thought it represented where we are now, loving each other while respecting each other's separate journeys." I fastened the bracelet around my wrist, too moved to speak immediately. Finally, I found my voice. "The greatest gift you've given me isn't this bracelet, beautiful as it is," I told her. "It's the woman you've become, strong, compassionate, and authentic. That's all I ever wanted for you, even when we were apart." Jennifer reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "I had to lose myself to find myself," she said thoughtfully. "And I had to lose you to truly understand what you mean to me. I'm just grateful I got a second chance at both." As I looked at my daughter, not the polished, artificial version who had rejected me, but the genuine, complex woman who had found her way back to her true self, I felt a sense of peace and completion that I hadn't experienced in years. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it was real, tested by fire, and stronger for having been broken and carefully mended. Sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes it means standing firm. But always it means leaving the door open for reconciliation, for new beginnings, for the chance to say, "Welcome home. I've been waiting for you." Have you ever had to rebuild a relationship after a painful break? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe to hear more stories about family healing and second chances. Remember, it's never too late for a new beginning with someone you love. Thank you for sharing this journey with me today, and may you find the strength to keep your heart open even when it's been broken.